Hello, Vagabond here. In my new video I'm going to tell you about the legacy of Volga Deutsche, also known as Volga Germans. The Volga Germans are ethnic Germans who settled and historically lived along the Volga River in Russia, around the cities of Saratov and Volgograd. Germans resettled from German lands of the Holy Roman Empire of German nation to Volga region of Russia based on manifestos of the Catherine the Great, the Russian Empress, in the 1760s and lived there for almost 2 centuries. The main reasons why Germans moved to Russia included invitations from Russian rulers and various privileges, such as tax exemptions, the provision of land for agriculture, as well as the opportunity for free religious practice and the preservation of their language and culture. These motives attracted German colonists who wanted to start a new life under more favorable conditions and improve their economic situation, along with the economy of the Russian Empire. One of the main tasks of the government when resettling colonists from Western countries to Russia was the development of agriculture. German settlers brought with them from their homeland a bunch of agricultural tools which had barely been used in Russia before, such as a plow, a scythe, and a wooden thresher. Before the resettlement of Germans, Russia had produced mainly rye and a small amount of wheat. The colonists greatly expanded the number of crops they grew. They began to grow potatoes, increased the crops of flax and hemp, and also grew tobacco and other crops. With the development of agriculture and the growing welfare of the population, the German colonies started developing their own industries. At the beginning of 19th century, flour production, the oil pressing industries, the manufacture of agricultural implements, as well as the production of wool and leather goods developed intensively. Despite the formation of the Soviet Union on the side of the Russian Empire, the autonomy of Volga Germans was preserved. However, during the Second World War, the Volga German population faced serious repression and deportations due to the war against Nazi Germany. These measures were taken by the Soviet government under the influence of a sentiment against German Nazis and concerns about potential betrayal from German colonists. The Volga Germans were deported to various regions of the USSR, situated far away from the front line, mainly to Siberia, Kazakhstan, Komi Republic and the Urals. This was done to isolate and control Volga Germans to prevent possible collaboration with Nazi forces or internal conflicts within the country. Repressions included arrests, confiscation of property, deportations of entire families, and collective resettlements. These measures led to heavy losses for the Volga German population and had long-term consequences for their community and culture in Russia. From the beginning of the Second World War to the present day, the German population in Russia has significantly decreased. Before the beginning of the war, there were about 1.5 million Germans in the USSR, and half of them lived within the boundaries of the modern-day Russia. Nowadays, there are less than 200,000 Germans living in Russia, and this number decreases every year. In this video, I'm going to visit several settlements in Saratov region that used to be German colonies to explore their cultural heritage. Enjoy the video, and if you like it, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and leave your comments.
I'm going to take buses and hitchhike to get around the area, and in addition to visiting some places, I will also try to chat with local people in hope of getting some interesting information to share with you. So currently I'm in the town of Kamyshin in Volgograd region, trying to get out from here. So the first stage is going to be the hitchhike stage. Anyway, hitchhiking spot is pretty nice. There is enough space to pull over for the car. The view would be more spectacular if there was this construction site. The city of Kamyshin is over there, and I can clearly see Volga River as well. The temperature around is approximately minus 10 degrees Celsius. Well, pretty cold, let me say. I have successfully covered 70 kilometers to the turn to the first village that I'm going to visit. This is the road that I will have to follow for 5 kilometers to reach the village. A friendly truck driver from Volgograd region gave me a lift here. The truck driver told me that one of his relatives is actual German and he still lives in this area. I have already made it to the village, and right behind me is the Lutheran church, German Lutheran church that was constructed here in 1907. Also, the German colonies appeared in Volga region at the second half of the 18th century. At the beginning they constructed wooden churches that have not survived till these days, and later they constructed more monumental, more serious churches like this one. So in 1907 it is completely abandoned, and it's probably been abandoned since the deportation of Germans from this area. Скажите, а в этой деревне еще живут немцы? Или их предки, потомки?
Да нет уже.
Больше эта масса была просто депортирована, да, еще в те времена?
Ну да, кто уехал опять в Германию.
А вот эти вот домики, которые заброшены, они тоже немецкие, да?
Вот это вот немецкие, он деревянные немецкие.
So in 1760s, Germans, along with other foreigners, were welcomed to Russian Empire by Russian Empress Catherine II. She issued manifesto, like the invitation letter for all of the foreigners to settle in Russia in any kind of area, and she also allocated some lands in modern-day Volga region for new settlers. So if settlers settled down there, they got some benefits, some discounts, so they were allowed not to pay taxes for 30 years, they were given some loans and stuff. So Germans and other foreigners who decided to move to Russian Empire successfully coexisted with Russia even during the first stage of the existence of Soviet Union, and only in 1940s, when the Second World War started, German population was deported from Volga region in 1941, from here to be precise, because Stalin was afraid of potential collaboration of German population of this area with Nazi invaders. That's why they were deported to some faraway lands like Kazakhstan and Siberia, and the settlements that were formerly populated by Germans started to die out, obviously. And currently we are inside one of the Lutheran churches. At some point the situation with German heritage in Volga region of Russia reminds me of what is happening in Kaliningrad region, which was actually German land before the Second World War. So churches here are completely destroyed, and the majority of them do not operate like this one. So this church is located in the village of Kamenka. Its old German name was Ber, and as you can see, there is no roof. Side walls have been preserved. There is no clocks, but we can see the original crosses. Also, Germans were allowed to continue living here even after the change of power, so switching from Russian Empire to Soviet Union. Religious services were stopped, and this church was used as a garage or a storage of some goods and equipment, and probably it was not maintained since then. Next to the church is a small memorial to the victims of the Great Patriotic War. Also, the Second World War started in 1939. The Great Patriotic War, so the war for Soviet Union, actually began in 1941. That's why you always see these numbers on the monuments. So there is a list of surnames of people who probably were conscripted and mobilized to the army, and among them I see one pretty German surname, Schäfer. Possibly it was a German individual, but it's actually unclear if it was a woman or a man, because on this list there are both males and females. An interesting fact is that some Germans actually served in Red Army of Soviet Union, but the majority of them were in the so-called Trudarmia, which was basically the subdivision of Soviet army focused on the construction. They worked not on the front line, but in some peaceful areas. So they did forestry, they constructed new enterprises, so they basically produced different equipment necessary for the front. In addition to the church, there are other artifacts of German era, such as residential buildings that are ruined, but not all of them. Some of them are abandoned, like this one, but some of the houses are still inhabited. It was made of brick, and actually it's pretty difficult to differentiate such German house from ordinary merchant house typical for this area, but at least one of the locals claimed that this house particularly was German. Let's get to the local grocery store. Здравствуйте. А у вас есть йогурты? Какие-нибудь, которые можно пить? А, вот такие, да? Они с каким-то вкусом, с клубникой, да? Давайте вот я один такой возьму. Я хотел спросить, а сколько плюс-минус человек сейчас тут живет?
300
в деревне?
плюс-минус.
300?
Ага.
А среди них есть немцы?
В общем, немцы были, умерли, уже старые были. 80 с лишним было одному дедушке, другому под 90. Я жила, знаете где? Я жила в Губахе, Пермский край.
Я там был буквально несколько дней назад.
Да? У меня дедушка был, он у меня немец. Вот. И он рассказывал нам, здесь он где-то жил, и он называл село где-то здесь. Они были маленькие, родители куда-то угнали, и они просто, дети тут одни жили. Он пас коров, вот где-то эти села. И так получилось, что я вышла замуж и приехала вот где он, где-то вот тут эти села.
Но ведь и в Пермском крае, как раз таки в той стороне, в стороне Губахи, там же тоже немцы были в свое время.
Ну,
Собственно, они строили все эти угольные города, типа Кизела, Гремячинска.
Немцы,
Да. А вы давно оттуда уехали? Вы помните эти
Я
места?
27 лет назад уехала.
Ну, как бы то ни было, там вот в соседних поселках рядом с Губахой, даже вот там не асфальт лежит, там лежит брусчатка.
Да.
Вот, и эту самую брусчатку немцы клали. We are on the main street of the village, and on both sides of the road you can see some houses made of brick, and it's highly likely that these ones are German. Some of them are inhabited, some are abandoned, but some people with German past still live here. This is the fact proven by several locals who I managed to interview. I have successfully hitchhiked to the next intersection of roads on my way. From here I will take this country road to the next village with the German church. We are in the village of Ust-Zolicha or Ust-Zalicha, not sure about the stress in its name. And there is another ruins of Lutheran church, German Lutheran church that appeared here between 1907 and 1912. Okay, we are getting inside the church. Here is no roof as well, and no paintings. Nothing has been preserved aside from the main construction of the church. The bell tower is over there. Wow, man. This part looks very bad, to be honest. The remarkable feature of this church is the vaulted ceiling. Quite a typical construction for German Lutheran churches. This is the view to the surrounding area. We are facing the bell tower of the church, which is partly destroyed even from its upper part. The final glance to the interior of the church. There is also kind of the back room. It probably has its own name that I don't know personally. There was another dome which does not exist anymore. Aside from the church, there are some more German constructions, like the one on the right. I think in the past it used to be the house of pastor of this church, but currently it's either a kindergarten or just a closed building. Welcome to the city of Engels, the second largest city of Saratov region, the former capital of Autonomous Republic of Volga Deutsche. this name Engels was given to this city at the beginning of 20th century. The city was named after the German philosopher Friedrich Engels. Nowadays Engels is a satellite city of Saratov. It's right across Volga River, and two cities are perfectly connected with each other. There is a lot of buses cruising between the cities. There is the bridge over Volga River. Here we can find a lot of beautiful buildings constructed in 19th century. Many of them have been reconstructed and restored, so they look very pretty. I'm going to spend 2 nights here in the city. I'm approaching my hotel to check in, but tomorrow I'm going to Province again to see some more Lutheran churches. I just need to get some water, yogurt, and probably some snacks for tomorrow's journey. I would definitely like to get this energy drink for tomorrow. These are my favorite cookies. I buy them every time, regardless of the destination. Water, 750 milliliters for 55 rubles. And finally the yogurt costs 60 rubles per one bottle. Pretty cheap, by the way. Okay, I've checked in such a lovely hotel. I'll have 1 room with 2 beds and private bathroom. Such beauty cost me 1,500 rubles per night, which equals, let's say, 17 bucks. Alright guys, this is the second day of my adventure. The plan for today is to visit 3 surrounding settlements of Engels. My journey begins in the center of Engels. There is the monument to the victims of the Second World War with the eternal fire. The monument to the Second World War in Engels is pretty massive, as well as the eternal fire. Among the German heritage of Volga, I would notice this unevident thing, such as buses. There is a lot of old Mercedeses that still cruise between cities, especially between Saratov and Engels. They were probably sold for half of the price here when they were written off in Germany, but they still operate here in 2024. And this is the place where you can probably learn more about German culture. This is the center of German culture, basically, in the very center of Engels. And right next to this cultural center is the square named after a German musician Alfred Schnittke. We can clearly see the goal for this settlement, the church, which is active, which has been restored, located in a tiny settlement near Volga River. Okay, there is this beauty, the church constructed in 1877 in the settlement that was formerly called Zurich as the city in Switzerland. This is a former German colony. I mean, the settlement was founded by German colonists in 1760s, in times of the Empress Catherine II. And this is one of the churches that has been preserved, which is still active. You can spend the night right on the territory of the church. There is this lovely guest house. So let's try to find the way in. Okay, we are in the church. We can finally enjoy its interior. Let me tell you that this is the best Lutheran church I've ever seen in the whole country of Russia, even comparing with the ones in Kaliningrad region. This church was reconstructed and opened in 2014, and since then there are regular services happening every Sunday. The pastor arrives here from another city, from Saratov, and currently, at this time, the church is closed, but it's still possible to get in. There is some kind of the museum explaining the history of this church and also the history of Volga Germans, most definitely. Probably this restoration took millions of rubles, but it's definitely worth it. So I hitchhiked to the former capital of the Autonomous Republic of Volga Deutsche in Soviet Union, to the city of Marks, which was also known as Yekaterinenstadt. So the city was named in honor of the Empress Catherine II. who organized the resettlement of Germans to this area. Nowadays this is a provincial Russian town with very few places of interest. There is a lovely Lutheran church in the very center of Marks. This is the main square of the city. There are the headquarters of the area, the administration, Mr. Lenin, as always. The city of Marks, former Yekaterinstadt, was the biggest German colony. It was strategically important location in Volga region because it used to be the transport hub. It used to be the center of tobacco growing. They planted tobacco here and imported it abroad. But currently Marks is just like a local small town with a population of 30,000 people.
In Marks, I was unable to find any noteworthy attractions other than the Lutheran church in the city center, so I soon left it. The next point of my trip around former German colonies of the Volga region was the village of Lipovka, where another abandoned church was located.
We are in the third formerly German settlement for today. We are in the village of Lipovka that was known as Schäfer. The settlement Schäfer was founded in 1766 by Germans who came here from Pfalz and Saxony, and it was populated exclusively by Germans until 1931. Usually when you see houses like this, like one house and two different parts of it, it literally means that two parts are owned by different people and they can be inhabited by, let's say, two different families. But I still think that most of Germans who lived here left the settlement during deportation in 1941. Abandoned places are like magnets to each other. If there is one, you'll definitely see another within walking distance. There is the abandoned church, here is the abandoned house, there is a tiny grocery store in this village, and the building of the post office. Such an authentic one in old wooden barrack. It's still working, by the way, 4 days a week. Finally reached this beauty. The church was constructed in 1906, and allegedly there were underground passages connecting this church with some houses in the village. And here we can see the staircase, by the way. We are hitting on the second floor of the church. There it is. And here is its interior. What a beauty, but sadly abandoned. Well, possibly I have found that entrance to the underground passage that I have already mentioned, the passage that connected buildings of the village with this church underground, but it's too narrow to squeeze. Well, probably it was either intentionally destroyed or it was destroyed just after time, naturally. Just want to focus your attention on clocks, probably a original one on the very top of the bell tower. There is no arrow, but the clocks have been preserved.